Welcome to episode 427 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Meyers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourScreenplay.com. Today I am interviewing Wes Miller. He is a lawyer turned filmmaker, really smart guy who just quit being a lawyer to pursue becoming a writer-director, and now he has written and directed and produced more than half a dozen feature films. We talk about his move from being a lawyer to a filmmaker, how he was able to make that transition smoothly, and then we talk about his newest film, A Day to Die, starring Bruce Willis, Frank Grillo, and Kevin Dillon. So stay tuned for that interview. SYS's six-figure screenplay contest is open for submissions. Just go to www.sellingyourScreenplay.com/contest. Our regular deadline is May 31st. If your script is ready, definitely submit now to save money. We're looking for low-budget shorts and features. I'm defining low budget as less than six figures. In other words, less than $1 million US. We've got lots of industry judges reading scripts in the later rounds. We're giving away thousands in cash and prizes. This year, we have a short film script category, 30 pages or less. So if you have a low budget short script, by all means submit that as well. I've got a number of industry judges that are looking for short scripts. If you want to submit to the contest, again, just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/contest. Also, this year we are running an in-person film festival in tandem with our screenplay contest. It's for low budget films, again, produced for less than $1 million US. We have a features and a shorts category. And again, lots of industry judges are going to be looking at the movies in the later rounds. The festival is going to take place in Hollywood, California from October 7th to October 9th. If you have a finished film and would like to submit to the festival, you can go to www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/festival. And you'll also see a link to submit to Film Freeway on that landing page. We're actually taking all of our submissions through Film Freeway just for really a variety of logistical reasons. It's just much easier to collect them in the Film Freeway. So if you use Film Freeway or you're on Film Freeway, you can definitely find us in there as well. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking or sharing it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. So now let's get into the main segment. Today I am interviewing writer, director, and producer Wes Miller. Here is the interview. Welcome, Wes, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Ashley.
So to start out, maybe you tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up and how did you get interested in the entertainment business?
Yeah, I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee. I've always loved film, ever since I was a little kid. I had like the little Pixel 2000 black and white recorder, record on the tapes. We used to make, films in the neighborhood with all the kids and stuff, man. And then, wound up, playing football, went to college, and then found my way to law school. Long story, I really wanted to go in the film world, but my college's film program was full. So I did pre-law and kind of fell in love with the law at the time. And then just kind of dug in and went to law school, man. And, about practiced for about eight years or so and realized, man, this just wasn't, the final calling for my life, man. And then just started really, working and reading. And honestly, like your podcast has always been like a resource, even in the transition, man. So back in 13, 14, when I was like, dibbling a little bit and was like, should I or should I not? And then in 2015, man, went on and made the full-time switch.
Okay, good. And so let's talk about that a little bit. Undergraduate, I was an accounting major. So when I got out of school, I said, I'm going to go to Hollywood and be a screenwriter. I definitely got some strange looks. You even took it a step further. I mean, it's not just, the time, there's money, there's a whole career. So let's talk about that transition. How did you know it was the right time to leave? And how did you you must have gotten some blowback from parents, friends, family, just thinking that maybe this is a crazy move to try. Just talk about that a little bit, maybe.
Yeah. So the thing is like, so around, I think it'll be like 2012, I started. So essentially really what happened is I was looking for something to do. I was like, I know this isn't it. I know the law isn't it. And then the DSLR revolution came, and then, the Canon 5Ds, that first generation. Then the Canon came out with like the T3Is. And that was kind of like my first camera. And so that's when I kind of picked up a camera and just started like staging scenes and shooting, and I shot a couple of little shorts. And then what happened it's like 2013, a producer who's now an Emmy winning producer / director picked up my first screenplay off of a website. I think it was Simply Scripts. And, you know, it wasn't a lot of money or anything, but he brought me out and I got to watch the process of like, you know, of everything. I just watched the whole process of casting and shooting, and, you know, I was there on set, and I just really, really fell in love with everything. And then I also learned, like, if you want something you write to come out to be like you want it to be, then you also have to, you know, be the director of it. And so yeah, man. And then so I just really, you know, started learning and you know, studying and really learning writing. And, you know, like I said, like, I didn't do film school. So like the website No Film School, your podcast, John Goldsmith's Q&A, I just kind of like began to immerse myself in different creators and just like, what are their paths? What have they done? And then, I don't know, man, like around 2015, I was like, you know, I was getting enough good feedback on the scripts that I was doing that I was like, okay, you got a talent at it, but you're going to have to dedicate yourself and really work hard to do it. And you only live once, man. So it's kind of like, you know, once I realized there was a path forward and that I was actually like, I was pretty good at it and realized it was a craft and you have to work at it, because the law is a jealous mistress. And I would say the same thing about filmmaking. Like, you know, I'm learning a full new craft, like, you know, in mid-career. And then, so yeah, man. So I made the switch in like summer of 2015. Sold the practice. That gave me a little bit of, you know, income to kind of like hold me off, you know, help out a little bit. And then, you know, wife was amazing as well to be able to help in that regard. And I will say, man, you know, candidly, so my mom was like, excuse me, you want to do what? You're like, you want to, I'm sorry, what? So yeah, she was unhappy, but most of my friends and family were like real supportive of it. Because they had seen that I was doing little things, and they were like, oh, you know, oh, okay, you can actually, it actually is pretty good. But then I think the hardest thing for me was probably the emotional switch, because, you know, you when you become a lawyer, you know, you go through this transition in law school of becoming a lawyer, thinking like a lawyer, and your identity becomes wrapped up into who you are as a lawyer. And then when you lose that identity and you're like, I'm not gonna say nobody, but you're like, you know, you're not like, I'm a lawyer anymore, even though you're still technically a lawyer, but you're not practicing, but you're not quite yet I'm not gonna, I use the term real filmmaker. I mean, like full-fledged filmmaker. You're still like, you know, you're doing more than aspiring because you're making stuff, but you haven't really hit the point where you can, quote unquote, make a living at it. And found your identity at it, found your voice at it. So that was like a nice little wilderness period that was, you know, probably took like 3 to 4 years, that you just kind of walking through the wilderness as you're growing. And then I often would remind myself, like, look, you know, it took college, it took law school, you know, that's 7 years to become a lawyer. Like, it's not unreasonable to say you need 5 to 7 years to become a filmmaker. Full time, 5 to 7 years. If you're going part time, it'll take that much longer. Because every minute you're not writing or not shooting or not studying, it's just work not being done. So yeah, it was a very difficult transition, bro.
Yeah, it sounds like, yeah, I'm sure. So at this point, you had done a couple of shorts. It sounds like you had sold this feature and had another one sort of in the works option. Did you have an agent and manager? Had you started to sort of pursue some of those avenues?
No, and I still don't yet. You know, pretty much everything that I've done has pretty much, you know, been, I'm not up until recently, everything that I've done has been like me and a couple of guys, a couple of friends, where we just go hard, and we just make, you know, we just produce it ourselves, and you know, teaming up, you know, with good financial partners who can, you know, see the stuff through. But no, man, you know, and I haven't really sought out managers or agents yet. I think it's partly because I want to make sure I'm an asset when I you know, reach out to them. I feel like I'm at the point where I would feel like an asset to like a manager and agent. But, you know, maybe in the next, you know, 6 to 12 months, you know, I'll start reaching out. And I've had some recommendations thrown my way, but yeah, man, I just wanted to make sure that my craft was ready on the directing level and writing level before I just started like, reaching out to managers and agents.
Yeah, sure. So let's dig into your latest film, A Day to Die, starring Bruce Willis, Frank Grillo, Kevin Dillon, and a bunch of other really great actors. You really put a great cast together for this one. Maybe to start out, you can just give us a quick picture log line. What is this film all about?
Yeah, the short version is it's about a group of soldiers who have to band back together when one of their soldier buddies' wife is kidnapped after he shoots the underling of the local drug kingpin, who's played by Leon. And then he has to get $2 million in 12 hours or, risk losing his wife.
Okay.
That's a quick,
Yeah. So let's dig into this a little bit. So you're a director on this project, not necessarily a writer. So how did you get involved with this screenplay? How did you find it? How did it sort of come across your desk?
Yeah, so a friend of mine sent it to me, and he knew I was at the point where, you have to ask yourself, all right, like, what kind of filmmaker do I want to be? Like, what is it? Yeah, what is it I want to do? And I've come to the realization that I'm a filmmaker who likes to make socially relevant action films, right? And then as a filmmaker, you have to position yourself, to have some value in the foreign market. So I was looking for an action piece that, I could infuse some of myself and help elevate, and also have cool action that would also translate, across the world. So my friend sent it to me, and it was pretty good. It was decent. But, it was really just a straight A and B, type of thing. And so I really wanted to, work to add a few layers into it. So I did a little rewrite. I wouldn't, claim, credit as the writer, because I just, kind of took the structure that was there and just added a few characters and, a couple of plot points here and there and twist. But that was it, man. It was just like, a friend sent it to me, and I was like, all right, we can work from this. I know what the challenge is. Let me, see if I can rise to the challenge and exceed it.
So, and I wonder, this is sort of your more practical lawyer brain talking, but there does seem to be sort of a practical aspect where, because this is what we always hear, especially in the low budget realm, doing action films, they do play around the world. So how did you sort of come to that conclusion, or sort of learn about that stuff, as far as like, you didn't go make your, going to camp, or some very personal story about growing up in Memphis, Tennessee, which I'm sure could be a great movie, but not necessarily the most commercial movie. And so you have a sort of a commercial bent, but maybe you could tell us about that. How did you sort of learn about that? And what is sort of your thinking on commercial and artistic? Because I hear exactly what you're saying too. You're trying to do something commercial, but you're also trying to put in something that you feel is socially relevant to yourself and just artistically important to yourself.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is, I think the first part of that is, I did a couple of earlier films, River Runs Red and Hell on the Border, and made some good relationships with like some really strong sales agents, and some different producers. And at the end of the day, like when you're out getting these films financed or working to get them financed, if you have a drama, and unless it's like, super A-list actors, it is like hard to get it financed. I mean, the market is risk adverse, unless you have, a lot of, equity investors who are, willing to take certain risks, which are really hard to find. And so you have to, and the reality is that this is how the studios make their movies. I mean, and it's just on a smaller level. You have to understand like what the elements are needed to make films. People love action movies. And so like, they wouldn't be financeable or popular if people weren't watching them. It also translates, action translates, across all demographics, all worlds, all countries. So that's why, it really helps in the foreign market. And I do think like, I think for me, it was just like, I asked myself, like, look, do you really want a lot of people watching your material, or do you just want to just, make, small dramas? And I was like, no, I really want people to watch. And I look at people like, the Antoine Fuquas, the Michael Bays, the F. Gary Grays, they make really, good action movies. They have really big budget. So my thought was this, with this one, it was just like, look, let me show producers and financiers and even, hopefully some studios that, like, look, look what, this guy is able to put together, on a super small budget. And it's like, all right, like he's all right. Like he can do it. So yeah, it was just like a lot of, thoughts. And, you have to think about, if you're wanting to do this for a career, you have to think about your career trajectory. And like, I used to play football, and like, I wouldn't go play defensive end when I played cornerback. I play cornerback, and I'll play the best cornerback, be the best cornerback I can. And it's just like, look, I love action films. I love saying something. Those are not mutually exclusive. And you can definitely infuse yourself into commercial fare, and, you means you can keep doing it over and over again.
Yeah, for sure. So what do some of those conversations with these sales agents and producers look like? And I just like real nuts and boltsy. I mean, I've had those conversations where they say, okay, you got to have an action scene on an action movie every 10 pages, and especially low budget, it's expensive to do action. So, a lot of times you end up in a low budget action movie. It doesn't really qualify as an action movie, but maybe there's some other things that these guys are telling you. And maybe you can tell us some of those tips for, writers listening that maybe want to write a low budget action movie.
I've heard that like said out in in the world before, but I've never had a financier or a producer, come back and say, hey, make this more actiony every 10 pages. Honestly, what I'm really learning is all about story, like bottom line, because at the end of the day, no matter how good the script is these days, if you don't have a cast attached to support the budget, it's nearly impossible to get done. I mean, like in the finance world, you can, again, if you have equity people in behind you, then I would love that. But when you don't, and you have to work within the financing system, then like you have to have talent, you have to have cash, you have to have names. And the reality is, again, like even in the studios, like they do their little boards, and with their popularity overseas when they're casting, again, it's at a different budget level. But they are casting names and their material because they want to do it. Now again, you have the exceptions like the A24s who do smaller budget stuff that take artistic risk, but that door is so narrow. Like, and for me, I don't want my career to be dependent upon that. But yeah, could I write something? Do I have something like stories like Set in Memphis, like, talking about my childhood? Absolutely. Are they there one day to maybe, if I get that opportunity? Yes, but I'm not going to sit back and not work on my craft and not continue to get better while we, try to get that one done. And again, man, like, honestly, like shooting action, man, like with the squad on the ground, man, it's fun. And to your other point, yeah, it's tough to shoot action on more contained budgets. I would say that technologies has leveled that playing field, but you still need your stunt coordinators, you need your armorers, if you need your special effects team, because we did all our stuff practical, 99.9 of everything in our film is practical. So you still need those. So it does raise the cost, to do it safely and do it right. But that means you have to go get that talent to kind of support raising that budget up a little bit.
Yeah. And are there some specific things that you've learned that, you get a lot of bang for your buck, certain action things. And I'm curious, like you just said, it was 99% practical effects. That would have been the opposite of what I intuitively would have thought. I would have thought in this day and age, doing CGI would have been the cheaper way to do it. But are there some things that maybe are not so intuitive that writers can write into their scripts that can be done cheaply and still really, pack a lot of action?
Yeah, I would say, I think, of course, hand-to-hand combat is always good. And it's hard to just narrow down. Let's see. So hand-to-hand combat you can do without it being terrible, with a couple of stunt doubles, and you have a good fight coordinator, some breakaways, like you can make it really good. If you have a small gunfire scene, you could get away with doing that with CGI, but like, we have full on assault rifles and like extended gunfire. And I feel like if you go CGI with that, you lose a lot of the intensity and the visceral nature of like the shooting and stuff. So like, you really need that. Definitely chases, foot chases, and that, again with stunt doubles. Yeah, it's hard. I would go back to this, man. I would go back to what I've really come to realize is, again, it's about the story, because that story is what's going to draw in those bigger actors. And I would say, like, start, just stay true to the story and the screenplay. If you get that actor on and you realize, hey, we have to pull back and cut some stuff, we did have to, cut a couple of sequences because, like, it was really ambitious. Then you bring it back down, but always for the read, always focus on the story and making the action feel as full as possible. And then you do have to be prepared. If we can't do this, what's an option that gives us the same feeling kind of scenario?
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. I'm curious, just not necessarily anything to do with screenwriting, but how did you learn to shoot action? Were some of your shorts very actiony when you're doing these short films? Did you study? Like, how did you actually learn how to shoot action scenes?
Yeah, so they were not. They were more dramas. So that's when I was still trying to find myself a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So doing a couple of dramas, and I think, like, so so on the first one that I did was a movie called Atone, like super, super low budget. And it was the challenge. The way I learned is just by doing it. So the challenge was like, all right, here's a contained, faith-based action film in a church. And we had a few fights, a little gunfire, nothing like crazy. But it was action and it did pretty well, for us. And then what happened is I met a guy who was like up and coming at the time. This was like 6 years ago, named Greg Rementer, who was an amazing stunt coordinator, second unit guy. And, we just kind of dug in. He had worked on the Marvel shows, and, we just kind of dug in and, like, just went in at it. And it was a really, so I learned a lot of the techniques that they use on the Marvel movies. He brought over with us, and, did that. And now he just, like, he was the fight coordinator in Nobody. He's Bullet Train. He was like the second unit director that's coming out. Like, so he's like a real up and coming talent, but, just really, again, like, getting with people, and, like, he was just like a full team member, man. It was like, just like a homeboy, man. So, so that's it, man. And just learn. And I ask questions, pick up cameras, and I like to shoot myself. So I get in there with the camera and we shoot.
Gotcha. So you keep going back to the cast. So let's talk about that a little bit, in terms of the raising of the money of this film. Obviously, Bruce Willis is probably the biggest star in your movie. Talk about that a little bit. What did come first? Did you have to get Bruce Willis attached first, and then you're able to raise the money, or did you have to raise some money and then get Bruce Willis attached?
So no, the way it works is, like, again, like, because of a couple of earlier films, I have a relationship with a few, sales agents. I mean, they know that I can finish a film, that I can deliver a film, and one that they can sell. And that's really a huge part of the battle, because when I first started, I couldn't even get anybody to take my calls, man. It was, it's tough. I mean, it still is tough, but it was tougher. So in this regard, you basically send the script over to the sales agent. They'd be like, all right, this is something we dig. I'll dig it. And then, all right, let me know who your cast is. So we go out and get our cast. And then let's say we bring up name A, B, and C. They're like, all right, with these names, this is what we can sell it for. This is the minimum guarantee we can give you. You're shooting your tax date for X amount of dollars. Then you know how much money you have to make the movie with. If that's not enough, you got to recast or get, different names. And it's not really full recasting, because you can't do that to talent. You can't just be like, get them on the hook and be like, oh, we don't need you anymore. That's not it. So don't misunderstand that. It's more, if there's talent that is accessible, that you have relationships with, or has expressed a strong interest in the material, then you're like, hey, this guy's interested. If I'm able to lock it in, what are we able to do? And so that's the thing. And for us on this one, I had a relationship with Frank Grillo after our last movie. Great dude. And so, like, he was on board with this. And what happened was, we were going to shoot this in 2020, right before COVID hit. We were going to shoot. And then, COVID.
Is Frank Grillo as the lead?
No, he was going to have the same role as it's kind of the lead, but no, it's the same role. He's like the captain of their squad. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really an ensemble piece, and I think Kevin Dillon is more of the driver as far as that goes. And then with Leon, they're both like, I would put them one or two, that kind of scenario. Yeah, so Frank was on board, and we had a friend of mine, Gianni Capaldi, was on board from earlier. We've worked together a few times, great actor. And then, with those guys, though, the budget was going to be at a certain level that would have made it difficult for me to even get close to the vision that I had. So we came back and we're like, all right, because now COVID costs you have to factor in. So budget goes up. And so then, we were working to add that one other name that would really help the film have the financing to the point where I knew I could like, okay, like, look, I don't have $10 million and I need more than $1 to even come close. But, with technology and the cameras we used and the shooting style, I know I can give us something that feels big, but, we need at least a minimum of X. And I don't know what that number was now, but it just, we needed one more name. And then I had a friend who's also in the movie, Alexander Kane, who plays Steve, who also had a relationship with Bruce's squad, Bruce's team. And he basically vouched for me. I interviewed with the team. I use interview loosely. I mean, they met with me, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and so, they were cool. They were cool with me. And yeah, Bruce signed on. And after that, it was just really like, letting the financing close up and make the movie.
Mm-hmm. So how long was this whole process from when you first sort of got the script, did your rewrite, to actually getting in finance? Obviously you got closed down because of COVID, sort of set you back, but how many years was this project?
It was probably 2 years, man.
Hmm.
From the time, because I think Frank committed in like December of 19. Yeah, so I probably would have started working on it like summer of 19 to get it kind of in a place where I felt comfortable even sending it to Frank.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got shut down 2020. And then we wound up shooting 2021.
Gotcha. So just sort of wrapping things up, just what advice would you have for someone if someone comes to you and says, hey, I'm fresh out of college or fresh out of law school and I want to go and become a screenwriter? What advice would you have for them?
Right. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, study and write. If you have the ability to work a small job, or you know, if you have a spouse that's supportive, or however, like I would probably make sure though that, like, A, I really enjoy it, and B, I have a real talent at it. And the only way you know that is if you write something and you shoot it, and then you write something, you shoot it. You do that 2 or 3 times, and if you're getting better, and you love it, then you might want to go ahead and make that
Mm-hmm.
call. If you're doing it and you're not getting better, then sometimes you just have to face the tough reality. It's like, this might not be the career path for me, even though I enjoy doing it. Maybe it's producing. Maybe maybe slide in as a producer. Maybe it's directing. Maybe it's ADing. Maybe it's production supervisor, production manager. There's so many different important pieces of the puzzle of making film, and I know we all want our words out there, but you got to have that honest assessment of hey, all right, I'm actually good at this, or I'm getting enough positive feedback from industry people that I should do it. But like, honestly, man, find great stories and write. Find great stories and write.
Yeah, sound advice for sure. Is there anything you've seen recently that you think was really great, especially something maybe that screenwriters should check out? Hulu, HBO, Netflix, anything out there you've been watching that you thought was really good?
Yeah, I think I would say two things. Somebody that I've looked up to, who broke out like right as I was making the switch into the career, is like Taylor Sheridan. I've read not everything he's done. I haven't had a chance to read like some of these TV series, but I think if you watch Mayor of Kingstown on Paramount Plus, and then watch 1883, and maybe try to find a couple of the screenplays. I think watching how he works in two different genres, and the focus on characters, and one is a very much a slow burn, and one is a lot more tense and tighter.
Mm-hmm.
It'll really give a good contrast as to where you can and possibly should or could be one day as a writer and as a showrunner. He's really good, has a good voice, and I read about his process not too long ago. And, he's not a big outliner. He just, he pretty much gets in and writes it and lets it take, where it goes, which is, a lot different than a lot of people. So I think both of those will be a good case study and also enjoyable watch.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, good recommendations. How can people see A Day to Die? Do you know what the release schedule is going to be like?
Yeah, so it dropped on Friday, March 4th. And now it's, I know it's in select theaters, maybe till like Wednesday or Thursday. And then all VOD platforms, starting, it's already there now. So by the time you're watching it, go check it out. It's a lot of fun. It's really, we really worked hard on it. Just really wanted to make a cool little action film, and hopefully it's a nice springboard for other things.
Yeah, perfect. We would definitely check it out. What's the best way for people to keep up with what you're doing? Twitter, Facebook, a blog, anything you're comfortable sharing, I will round up for the show notes.
Yeah, mainly Instagram.
Okay.
I'm really bad at social media. I'm trying to get better. This release has forced me to post a lot, and so I'm gonna try to keep it up. But I am Wes Miller. Is the handle at Instagram.
Okay, perfect. Well, Wes, I really appreciate you coming on and talking with you today. Good luck with this film, and good luck with all your future projects as well.
Thanks, man, and keep up the good work, man. Very
Thank
educational, you. And yeah, man, you're listening to a lot of your guests actually gave me a lot of the courage to make that switch, man. So you may not hear it a lot, but it's making a difference.
Well, I really appreciate that, Wes. That's great to hear. So thank you very much.
All right, my man.
So, take it easy.
Right. Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
All right, bye.
SYS's From Concept to Completion Screenwriting course is now available. Just go to www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/screenwriting course. It will take you through every part of writing a screenplay, coming up with a concept, outlining, writing the opening pages, the first act, second act, third act, and then rewriting. And then there's even a module at the end on marketing your screenplay once it's polished and ready to be sent out. We're offering this course in 2 different versions. The first version, you get the course, plus you get 3 analyses from an SYS reader. You'll get 1 analysis on your outline, and then you'll get 2 analyses on your first draft of your screenplay. This is just our introductory price. You're getting 3 full analyses, which is actually the same price as our 3-pack analysis bundle. So you're essentially getting the course for free when you buy the 3 analyses that come with it. And to be clear, you're getting our full analysis with this package. The other version doesn't have the analysis, so you'll have to find some friends or colleagues who will do the feedback portion of the course with you. I'm letting SYS Select members do this version of the course for free. So if you're a member of SYS Select, you already have access to it. You also might consider that as an option. If you join SYS Select, you will get the course as part of that membership too. A big piece of this course is accountability. Once you start the course, you'll get an email every Sunday with that week's assignment. And if you don't complete it, we'll follow up with another reminder the next week. It's easy to pause the course if you need to take some time off, but as long as you're enrolled, you'll continue to get reminders for each section until it's completed. The objective of the course is to get you through it in 6 months so that you have a completed, polished screenplay ready to be sent out. So if you have an idea for a screenplay and you're having a hard time getting it done, this course might be exactly what you need. If this sounds like something you'd like to learn more about, just go to www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/screenwriting course. It's all one word, all lowercase. I will, of course, link to the course in the show notes, and I will put a link to the course on the homepage up in the right-hand sidebar. On the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing Tariq Salih, who just directed an action thriller called The Contractor starring Chris Pine. It's another fascinating episode. Tariq started out in documentaries and eventually started doing narrative film. So he talks about the transition and how doing documentary films helped make him a better narrative filmmaker. So keep an eye out for that episode next week. Just one last note that I thought was amusing. Wes was obviously very gracious to say that my podcast helped him. That's very gratifying. Obviously, that's a big part of why I do this, but it is not lost on me if I'm helping to convince people to give up successful careers as lawyers to be filmmakers, I might need to seriously reconsider what I am doing. Anyway, that's the show. Thank you for listening.